All right, let's head over to Roman. How is Roman doing?
Hi, you guys. How are you guys doing?
We are doing wonderful. It's great to have you on again.
I'm so happy too.
All right. So, for those of you who don't know who Roman Gottfried is, Roman, how do you want to introduce yourself? Let them know what you do.
Well, me and my wife are full-time RVers. However, I'm a certified dog trainer in holistic behaviors. I'm a Reiki master. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I'm doing energy work. And my passions are dogs, and my passion is to help people create awesome relationships with their dogs, and I specialize with dogs who have trauma, have severe behavior issues. I work with rescues. I work with shelters nationwide. And my outreach is basically international. I have clients in Australia, most of the U.S., Canada, New Zealand, India, whatever, Europe.
That's
That's what I do.
it's awesome, and I got some pictures of yours. How many dogs do you travel with?
We have three dogs. I have a Chinook dog, I have a Cane Corso, and I have a Chihuahua, and we have a Terrier, but don't tell our host.
She doesn't think she's a terrier. Thinks
No.
she's a big dog. So go ahead and for those who don't know or have never heard of holistic dog training, how is that different from just going online and looking for a dog trainer? How is that different?
Well, holistic dog training is an emotional, supportive, relationship-based training method that uses the dog's natural drive to explore the best options to achieve the behavior modification goals. I'm coming from a healing perspective. I want animals to heal from their behavior and not just to be corrected, because I don't believe dogs are bad. They're just awesome all over. Sometimes they get in trouble because they don't understand our language, they don't understand what we need. And so creating a balanced relationship and help communicating with dogs, with animals, people with dogs, will help them get the confidence, improve their relationship. And so we create a secure attachment relationship between dogs and people. So dogs trust the people to make that modification, and the people should have the ability to know about the dogs, know their breed traits, and understand their behaviors.
Right, and I know that each dog breed has different behaviors, and we've been talking. You've been helping me with training my dog Chief, and as a Chihuahua, he's very protective. He has more of a hyper kind of possessive nature to him, and so that's been interesting to learn about. And I know a lot of people want to know more about their dogs, but I want to talk about behaviors. You were mentioning
Yeah.
different behaviors. What makes a good behavior and what makes a bad behavior? How do you know if you have a good behaved dog or a bad one?
Well, the answer is relative because it depends on how the person sees the behavior. From my understanding, dogs show behavior for two reasons, either to get more of that or to avoid it. Now, we don't like the way they do it. For example, if a dog jumps on people, we hate that behavior. From a dog's perspective, he loves to meet the person. He doesn't do it the nice way. And so instead of helping the dog understand what exactly we expect the dog to do, we get frustrated. And then we call it bad behavior. We punish the dog for misbehaving. But we don't see the function of that behavior, which is the dog wants to get as close as possible to the person as quickly as possible. And we have encouraged the dog to do that. And so this action will be self-rewarded by our intention to meet the dog in that particular excitement level. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Because, my dog, I thought he was a bad behaved dog for a while, and I didn't understand that. And I finally got to see, after we discussed in our initial session, I got to understand more of who he is and whose personality, or what his personality is like, is a better way to put that.
Yeah.
But going to online dog training, because not only do you offer the in-person training sessions, but you offer online. Now,
Yeah, this is correct.
what if someone is far away, they want you to train their dogs? Why would they work with an online dog trainer versus someone coming to their home?
I would give an example of somebody who basically said exactly that word. When I work with my trainers in home, and he had several trainers coming to his house, try to handle his aggressive Pyrenees dog. All these trainers were great with my dog, and they walked away with their magic. And I was there just watching them walking away, and I had no tools in my hands to help handle my dog, so I was stuck in that trainer relationship who tried to control my dog. And then he says, then we did the online training, and all of a sudden I felt empowered to actually do the magic myself, understand my dog, understand his behavior, and my dog started trusting me, and that trust relationship modified my dog in a record time. In that particular case, it was basically a month, and he was trying for almost a year to try to get the whole hold of trainers to help him, and he basically called me to surrender the dog.
Wow. And it's incredible from the experience that I have had with you. My dog learned to sit so quickly after he just listened, and I got him to understand what I wanted him to do. And that's just from being online. It was unbelievable. Folks, go to romansholisticdogtraining.com. I think that's what it is, or is it holisticdogtraining?
.org.
.org. That's right. You got to go there and find out more about what he offers. It's absolutely incredible. As I told you, I'm blown away by what I'm seeing with my dog. He's changed so much, and I've changed too. It's this relationship that is just incredible. But what is the most important thing for someone that is new to training their dog to remember when they begin their training? Because I know that, you would think that it would be patience, but it's really having the understanding that you are in control. Is that right?
Well, let's put it this way. It's not different than going into a relationship with a person. We want to establish trust. We want to establish boundaries. We want to trust each other. We want to be clear about our needs and what we expect from the other person to do. With dogs, the same thing. As soon as the dog comes into our home, the dog's going through integration phase. So they want to create a secure attachment relationship where they trust where they are. And they need these people who have their dog to provide for them. So just being patient is not really helping here. We want to really guide the dog through the process of integration. And it takes about a month where we consistently have to improve our relationship, from teaching the dog what to do, what we expect, putting a proper schedule in, teaching them what we expect them to do. And everything has to come force-free. We cannot just force the dog to do something that we want, because the dog will go into resistance, and resistance creates frustration. Frustration creates aggression, and it's a vicious circle.
Right.
And so I feel like everybody who has a dog in his home really loves the animals, and they want to really do the best for the dogs. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and people tell them, your dog has to be the power, you have to be the pack leader of your dog, and people misinterpret that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of the whole, you need to be the alpha, and let the dog know that you're the alpha. And that's not the case.
And there's misinterpretation, and people say, well, then I have to force my dog because I have to be the alpha. Or if I'm not the alpha, my older dog is the alpha, and he controls my dog. But that theory
you are the parent.
Not right. It doesn't exist.
But you have to be the parent. Just like having a child. They call them fur babies. I mean, my dogs are my fur babies. That's my baby, and I want my dog to be secure, and I want my dog to trust me, and that it all comes together into one. And I can't do that if I'm the alpha, if I'm putting that kind of a almost aggressive nature on it.
Exactly. And we have to recognize that, I know it's a little bit difficult to put it in one word or one sentence. Animals are living in a family similar structure. There is, the alpha female and the alpha male, who are actually the breeding pair, and they care for the offspring. And so the offspring transmit that knowledge to the younger offspring. And it's a family conveyor. And so these dogs are educating themselves through these family interactions, just like we humans do. And so dogs are emotionally intelligent, and they have a family-based, actually, to be correct, a matriarchic system in the family. So the mother has control over the pack, let's call it this way, and the male is here to kind of teach the family code of conduct, let's call it this way, and the mother is reinforcing that rule. So basically, they have very strict rules, and so we're kind of lax about that, and we just have pets in our house and try to, just please them and just do some training, and that's it. Then we're losing the whole aspect of having a dog in a family in our home, because if we don't set up those rules, this dog will fail, because naturally he will go to his breed traits and does whatever he feels appropriate to get what he wants.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Do you mind if I jump over to some questions from people that have sent in emails? So I know some of these go together. Some of them are kind of the same question. I'm looking at a lot of them talking about dogs that jump. So this person, they have a 9-year-old rescue. Her name is Roxy, and she's very smart. And they said she's easily changed, but she has a habit of jumping to greet people when they come over. And they're trying to. They tried the knee up method and the turnaround method. They usually just put her on a leash and she settles down, but they're hoping that you can give a little insight on what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's basically an easy fix. We have to recognize that dogs jumps because he feels that way is the way to get it done. Some dogs get overly excited about meeting new people. They have hard time switching from one event to the other, and that anxiety leads them to that jumping. They need to control the event as it happens rather than the event control them. So what we need to teach the dog here is that the expectation, what will happen if they approach the person. So I will teach the dog a 3-second rule. And I would use one of my people in the house and teach them, what do I do when I come up to a person? What is my expectations? So I work with the dog on the leash, coming up to people, and he sits. He gets a treat. And 3 seconds later, the dog is walking away. So all the situation is going in, get the treat, and then we're out. That's the whole interaction. And I start with my people. And then I bring people in where the dog knows well and is very confident about them, but we still to work on the door, because door itself is an excitement trigger. So if the doorbell rings, the dog gets excited, and that excitement, he cannot think through the process. So what we teach the dog here is what to do in that level of excitement, and we have to hold space for that. So I have to teach how to walk the dog through the process by going towards this person. Even if the dog jumps, we call the dog back, we get the dog's attention, and then we walk him through the process. The way the excitement leads to that person is the way that we control it. So we don't let the dog get there, and we don't yank the dog, and we don't correct the dog, because we need to help the dog have this new experience that if he follows instructions and if he doesn't jump, this is how he gets more attention, and this is how he gets the reward. And suddenly, I think less in a session or less like in an interaction, usually dogs get it. Even if you take 1 or 2 jumps on you and you accept that, just offer the treat until the dog sits, and then give that treat. And guarantee you the dog in the 3rd round, he will recognize that sitting gets the treat faster than jumping on.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense. And is there a certain method that is similar for barking? Let's just say the doorbell rings and the dog will not stop barking. I know my friends have a dog like that someone even just comes in and walks near the door or in front of the house, and that dog is just set off barking for several minutes.
Right. We have to recognize that each dog's behavior has a function.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to recognize before we go to the treatment what exactly is the function of the behavior. So if the dog is territorial, he will bark because of his territory and he feels invaded in his territorial. That could be a past trauma that somebody invaded the house without the person knowing, like somebody came into the house and startled the dog, for example. The other things happen is that the dog doesn't know exactly what to expect, and we actually reward it because every time the dog barks, we go to the window and look who's out there. So basically, we reinforce with our actions the dog's behavior. Now, what I would suggest with barking, let's go one scenario so we clear that out. The dog barks at the door. I would definitely put myself in front of the door, open the door, and ring the bell, and let the dog wind it out. Let him bark about it. As soon as he calms down, he gets a treat. We reward the dog for stop barking, and then we reward for the dog barking less and less in that particular time.
So it's
similar.
It's similar to the jumping. You just have to wait
because it's a learned behavior. So we want to wind it off. So what I say, I give the dog an option. You have 2 options. I have a hot dog and I have the doorbell. You want a hot dog? Good. Just chew on it. And now ring the bell. Now, what's your option? You have to stop chewing the hot dog or bark at the doorbell. And I guarantee you 90% of the dog will continue chewing the hot dog. Well, here is the reward. You get rewarded instantly as you not choosing to bark, which is instant reward for not barking.
Right.
That's an easy case.
That makes sense because a lot of people are asking about the barking. I'm seeing a lot of comments coming through on YouTube about barking Yorkies and all of that. I know that they're kind of similar to Chihuahuas in that they're very territorial.
There is one thing I need to add here. Mm-hmm. There's an emotional conditional response. The dog always feels violated. So that's a trauma base. And I don't think in that particular level where small dogs feel invaded and intimidated and are responding to things that they want to avoid, which was the reason and the function of the behavior, they want to avoid it, so they bark to avoid it. If we correct that and we punish that, all we create is an additional trauma to the existing trauma, so the dog doesn't trust us at all.
Oh.
And I think that's more complicated, and we should look into getting a particular help. I'm not shooting here advertising like hire me kind of thing.
Right,
but you should go into and get help from a behaviorist.
That way you can get a better understanding.
So we have a better understanding of the function of the behavior, because he only can assess the situation through targeted questioning and through timeline searching. So if I can search the timeline, when was the first time the dog started reacting to that, people recognize, oh yeah, one day, somebody rang the door and my dog was there and he got trampled over and he got scared about it. Now he wants to avoid because the doorbell or this approach outside to the door is the introduction to the event that the dog is afraid of.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense, Roman. I want to jump in.
There's no way a dog does something because he's just a jerk.
Right. There's always something. There's something more with why the dog is behaving that way, whether it be the breed trait or, if, like in the case of a rescue dog, we don't know exactly what happened to that dog, and they can't really express in story form what happened. But if we take the time to get to know who they are.
I feel with rescue dogs we have one factor that usually plays an important role from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. Dogs come into the new home with a survival relationship status. They need that person to survive. They bond in that way. And they take at any level, at any cost, to keep that from changing. Because they lost it in the previous home. We don't know exactly how they lost it, but they don't want to go through this process again. So they do their best to impress the person, and the person responds to this barking, and the dog barks and he's scared, like, oh, what are you barking about? What's going on? And so we basically reinforce it. That day number one, hour one, minute one, we reinforce the dog's behavior without actually knowing it, that we create kind of like a relationship monster.
Right. Now, I'm looking at a question. This is actually a really good one. It just came in. This person has a 15-year-old border collie, and he's deaf after he had a surgery. How does she get him to come? Like, how can you? I'm sure there's a way to train a deaf dog, but it's a matter of dogs. Okay, so how would that happen?
I know so many people will reach out and say, "Yo, get him an e-collar and buzz him every time he wants to come." I would say we have to teach the dog to become aware of our presence all the time. So what I would suggest, because the dog is old and sometimes elder dog going through a process of getting Alzheimer and, start forgetting about stuff and start remembering their old childhood kind of and do all this fancy stuff. But in that particular case, since the dog is reliant on his hearing that he recently lost, we want to reprogram the whole event, what to look for. So what I would do is in the house, I would just reach my hand down flat and put a treat in between my fingers and just showing that I had a treat there. And when the dog comes over, that will be his reward. Theoretically, I give him a hand signal as my hand is down in a particular position, and only in that position, there's something in for you, pay attention so you can come. And then I have to generalize that hand signal throughout the house. So basically what's happening here is the dog, in order to pay attention to us, he has to be in a visual communication with us. Now, some dogs, they may have hard hearing. They do sense, let's say, noise. So we can try to use a whistle, like ultrasound whistle. Maybe the dog will hear it. However, start working with hand signals and teach him that hands down always means come for more. and that you can extend in your yard. Start with a leash, have the dog grab the leash so he kind of feels more under control. And so I'm teaching him, every time you see my hand down, come for here for a walk, and then you go play. That would be my first approach.
Okay.
Anybody has other questions?
We've got so many, Roman. We can do a couple more.
Sure.
Well, you know what? Before we do a couple more, I want to bring something up that you mentioned to me. And I think this is so important because some people may hear this and may start working on that, but may start working with their dogs. But the important thing that you told me is always following up. So if your dog, in the case of a dog that you give a command to, that you get to sit and they learn how to sit, you started off with look in order to get the dog to listen. You say look and you give them the treat. And that way they understand that is their attention getter. And then you get them to sit, to lay down, to shake, whatever.
Yeah, let me explain the command look. It's actually not a command, it's basically attention. And many people get confused with the command look at me, where we expect the dog to stare at us in a certain way. So that exercise, which I call look exercise, is the outcome if I start conditioning the dog into a certain word that has a certain meaning. Look equals pay attention. That's it. That's all it does. And so when I teach a dog, and I'm happy to guys to share with you because I think everybody should have that keyword. You can use whatever keyword you want. You can use here, you can say hey, but whatever naturally is to get the dog's attention. So I use the word look, and when I say the word look, a second later, I will deliver the treat in the dog's mouth with no expectations. Okay?
Right.
Now, in that case, I want to do a couple of repetitions in a row. Meaning is, I say the word look, I give the dog a treat. I say the word look, give the dog a treat in a second. And deliver the treat below the dog's head. Here's why. Because when I say the word look and I want the dog's attention, I want the dog emotions to be, I get something that is worth. If I deliver the treat above the dog's head, the dog goes into an avoidance movement. He goes backwards to get the treat, which I don't need to. Because I want a dog to emotionally is feeling to come closer to me, not to avoid my gesture. So that's the key number one.
Right.
The key number two, I start generalizing that command or that keyword by implementing an action command. So once I have the dog's attention, then the dog needs an action. So I say, look, go get your treat. So I toss the treat in a corner, let the dog fetch the treat, and then as soon as he has the dog in his mouth, I say the word, look, come. Now I say, pay attention, the next command is coming. Now here's why that look exercise is very helpful. Dogs have a very interesting trait. It's called persistence. Once they're on a job, they're bred to stick on the job. Now I tell him to go fetch something, and I want them to turn around and come back to me and let that go what he has. How do I transform from one event to the other? So we have this transition command, which is from one transition to the other. Pay attention, something new is coming. And in that condition, basically, it helps the dog to switch over into, hey, I pay attention, something else is coming. So that's already a positive interaction between you and your dog, because your dog expects you to give him more information to perform the next action. And this is where the action command comes in. You can say, look, get your dog attention, then you ask him to come, then you ask him to sit, and then all of a sudden, with that look exercise, you start the dog paying attention. Now, if your dog already is paying attention to you and looks at you, you don't need to do that exercise. Okay, you don't say, look, and then he's like, I'm here watching you, what do you want? And do not use the dog's name, because we abuse the name for different reasons. Name, bad dog. Name, good dog. Name, come back, I'm removing you from where you have fun and put you in a crate. So the name has actually a so complex meaning to the dog that actually is so diluted. But the look exercise is very clear. Look equals input, and input gives you a new job. And the dog wants a job. We create a job description with that.
And going into that, it's so important to follow that up with either the treat. You gave me the example, like you're at a grocery store and you're pushing your cart along and someone behind you goes, oh, hey, 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 and trying to get your attention. You turn around, you're like, what's going on? They don't say anything.
Exactly.
You're just like, okay, then. Well, then I'm just going to go keep doing my own thing. And so, I mean, that it just is so important for follow-up for them. And it's just like teaching children at the same time. I mean, they're furry, and they don't really They can't speak, but they sure can let you know what they're feeling, and
as
you
you
can
become
tell.
a teacher in the future, when you start having interaction with children, all you want is the children to pay attention to you because your information is of value.
Right.
And so you have to be very, very precise what exactly information you share with your kids. If you talk too much, they stop paying attention. If you're not talking at all, they'll stop paying attention.
And
so you have to give the incentive to pay attention to you.
Exactly. And they need to know that and just dogs, they need to know that I'm the person that will provide that information. I'll be the person that provides the reward. And that's what my role is as their human.
And that's where the secure attachment relationship comes in. They just trust you with everything that you have to say is of value.
Right. Now, I'll go into one more question, Roman. This one is actually from my mom, and I know she talked a little bit about her dog. But things get a little crazy around our house. We got we got 4 dogs in the house, and my mom wants to know what's the best time of day, or is there a best time of day that you should train your dog? I mean, I know they get sleepy just as we do, but do you have a time of day where you're like, this is when you should really start?
Let's start from the other side. We want the dog to rest at least 20 hours a day because dogs rest a lot. They are very active, they are very energetic, and then they have to recover. So what I would say, after the dog is rested, every interaction with your dog is an educational interaction. There's no way I interact with my dog without having an educational factor. Everything we do, the way we play, everything has morals and ethics included. All we do is interacting with the dog in learning matters. Same thing with children. We are with children together. We interact with them because each interaction with us is a social experience, is a teaching moment, and we have to use every opportunity. Dogs grow up very fast, and if we don't get handle on the first 16 months of age of the dog, we're going to lose the game, and most of those dogs will end up in a shelter. So every moment is a teaching moment. When I interact with my dog, I have to understand what exactly my needs of my dogs are. If anybody's interested, I have a chart, which is a breed trait chart, and we can look on those breed traits and see which breed traits do I like and which breed traits do I don't like. A hunting dog who is just taking and mouthing everything, I need to wind it off, and I have to see how these breed traits are related to each other and what exercise do I have to create to reinforce the good traits and reduce the bad traits that don't fit in my household. Because I don't want my dog to chase my cats because he's a hunting dog, and I don't want my working dog to be protective over my house because he's more guarding traits. And, this is where I have to come in as a parent and help the dog learn that because I set it up.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And I just, with this dog, I'm excited to really get all these dogs to understand who we are as their people. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I've appreciated you being here with us, Roman. People are already saying they've learned so much. How can people find out more about holistic dog training or get a hold of you?
Well, it's easy to find me. You can Google www.holisticdogtraining.org/online training, and you're right there. I have a free consultation in the beginning. You can ask your questions to kind of get a better understanding which is the best approach. Usually, the worst-case scenario would be we're going into a training package will last about 5 sessions, and then pretty much we have everything under control. 90% of the time of behavior issues, we can address that, no problem, in less than 5 sessions. Easy cases are maybe 1 session, depending on the situation. The more information I have about the dog, about his past, and about his patterns, the easier we have a solution right in the first session. And basically understanding the dog's behavior and the reason why he makes that behavior is already 90% of the solution. So the easiest way is to go on my website, holisticdogtraining.org/online training, one word. Read through it. I have a lot of explanations there. I have individual sessions. I have healing sessions. I have training packages. That's the easy part.
And I got the link in the chat right now for people to click on, so they can go ahead and click on that. But that's awesome. And guys, if you really just got to check him out. You got to get one of those consultation sessions with him. Your eyes are
Yeah,
going
I'm
to be
happy to
open.
answer any questions you guys have in the comments. I'll have to check on your YouTube account as well.
Yes.
YouTube account as well to check in with people. Yeah, I'm happy to help.
Well, thank you so much, Roman. I appreciate you being on with us, and we'll have you on again soon. We'll have you on when my dad is back.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you so much. We will talk with you
Have
soon.
a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. And I will be visiting with you shortly.